got some blooper.
And you have to repeat the first. You want me to tell them who I am?
Who you are and what you play.
What I play. My name is Mark Robert Lightcap. And believe it or not, there are other Mark Robert Lightcaps in this country. I know. Strange as that name is. And I play rhythm guitar in the band Uther Pendragon.
How old were you when you first started playing the guitar? And I know you also play keyboard. So when did you first start music?
Interesting. Let's talk about the keyboard first, because that was kind of an interesting story. My mother had a baby grand piano in the living room, and when I was young enough to crawl up on the stool, the bench, I would hammer out the Marine Corps hymn. And I'd play that on the piano. So that's the earliest memory, probably 7 maybe. Mm-hmm. And never didn't get taught anything. I just figured that out myself and would pound on the piano, just having fun. And then she made me take violin lessons. I didn't like that so much.
I didn't like it either.
No, I didn't like the violin. Actually, and then she made me go to a recital for the playing the piano, and I didn't like that either because it was performing in front of people, and I was very shy. So why would I pick Uther Pendragon to be in a band? You know, I did it.
It's just
who
good.
knows? Yeah, good question. I know. I don't know.
And then you picked up guitar when? When did that happen?
You know, that's a great question too, because I was sitting in Spanish class at San Carlos High School. There was this tall guy sitting in front of me, and I couldn't see over his head because he was so tall, and I'd have to look around to see Mr. Costco, our Spanish teacher. And one day he turned around and started talking to me, and he said, and I think this was maybe, might have been a junior, and I think he was a senior. He turned around, he got a higher grade than me too, by the way, and he turned around and looked at me, and he goes, "I'm in a band." I go, "You're in a band? That's cool." He goes, "Yeah, we've got girls that dance on our speakers. We call them go-go dancers." And I said, "Okay, I'm in, man. How can I join the band?" He said, "Well, you have to know how to play the guitar." I said, "Well, I don't know how to play the guitar." He said, "I'll teach you." And so Bruce Marilich, the lead guitar and the incredible vocalist in Uther Pendragon, taught me how to play the guitar. I spent almost a year learning, saved my money, bought a K electric guitar and a K speaker, which is a knockoff of something, cheap electric guitar. And after a year, I got back to Bruce and said, "I've learned how to play the guitar. How do I join the band now?" He goes, "Yeah, we don't want you to." No, he didn't say that. He said, "Come over Saturday, and you can audition for the band. And if we like you, we'll let you in the band. If we don't, we'll say thanks anyway." And so, I was nervous. I went over, expecting to see big giant speakers with girls dancing on them. And we went to Doug Williams' one-car garage with shake shingles on the side, I think, and barely fit in the garage. And Martin was there, your dad, had his silver tone bass and bass guitar. Doug Williams, of course, was there. And I can't remember if Doug played keyboard at that time or not, but he ended up playing keyboard for us. And then Bruce, of course, was there, the one that gave me the guitar lessons. And we played songs like Ba 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 Ran, House of the Rising Sun, and some of those old standards, and I did the best I could. We stopped. He goes, "Okay, let's go in the house." We went in the house. He made me wait in the living room, sweating my guts out, while they went in the kitchen around the table and decided my fate.
Oh my gosh.
Came out, no, 15 minutes. It seemed like an hour later. It might have been 15 minutes, may have been 5 minutes. It might have been 30 seconds. It seemed like forever. Came out, he goes, "Okay, you can be in the band." And I go, "All right, I'm in the band." And I think we were called the Blue Fever at that time.
Blue Fever?
Yeah.
And it's been history ever since?
Yeah, well, and then
And what year was that? What year did your great trials of the living room begin?
That had to be, I think I might have been a senior in high school at that time. I think Bruce was living in an apartment somewhere, and we hadn't actually moved in together as a band. But shortly after that, we all moved into what we called the Hillman House in Belmont, and we started bonding as brothers.
And since you picked up guitar so casually, when did you decide to take it seriously? Because you're a professional musician now.
I took it seriously the day I moved into the band house and told my mother I'm moving out of our house where I grew up and I'm moving in with a band, and she thought she'd lost her son forever and screaming at me and crying, and I said, I'm going, and left and moved into this house in Belmont, and there was something about everybody that just meshed together, and we knew that this was more than just a passing fancy. This was a serious endeavor, but a fun endeavor at the same time. It was a life-changing experience that changed my life forever.
I heard that you really like the Beatles. Did you want to be bigger than the Beatles, and how influenced were you by them?
Well, it wasn't that we wanted, because it wasn't just me. It wasn't that we wanted to be bigger than the Beatles. We were going to be bigger than the Beatles. There was no doubt in our mind that we're firm believers in positive thinking, and we knew in our hearts and in our minds we were going to be bigger than the Beatles. As it turned out, we just lived longer than some of the Beatles. We were never bigger than the Beatles. But I mean, if you'd asked me back then, are you going to be as good as the Beatles? I said, no, we're going to be better. I believed it in my heart. And so they're an incredible group, and they are my heroes and some of my favorite songwriters and musicians of all time. I hold them in high esteem.
So this will be edited out. Okay,
So when did you take up the cello? No, that'd be
Wow,
I think until 3rd grade.
blooper reel. This is not about cellists at all.
Although I am the myth of a great one.
I understand that Uther Pendragon has decided as a group to call themselves the songwriter rather than attribute each song to individual people.
Exactly, yeah. We made that decision when we were playing and practicing in Palo Alto in the studio we were building, and we had incorporated, we were called UPCO at the time, and I remember when somebody would come up with a song, or a couple people would come up with a song, but the whole band then molded the song, and it became a hybrid of the original idea. And it made sense to us, although a lot of musicians and bands don't do this, it made sense to us to share the credit, because who's to say that the incredible bass part that Martin came up with wasn't what made that song fantastic? You know, who's to say that the lead part that Bruce came up with wasn't, it all contributed to the greatness of the song, and so that's why we decided to do that, and I'm glad we did.
Your arrangements are really intricate. How did you go about forming them? Because a lot of your songs have really different, interesting forms. They go on really long, or like at the end of Troubles, you have this whole denouement, and then you bring back the beginning theme. Like, how did you go about doing interesting things like that?
Well, I guess maybe I should go to answer that question. I go back in time from then, when we were a band, back to when I first heard rock and roll on my little tiny transistor radio, and I'd sneak it into my bedroom under my pillow, and my mother wouldn't know I'm listening to it, and I'd listen to rock and roll in this transistor radio. And when I heard that, I'm thinking, oh, I like this music, And then I would start hearing whole songs with all the parts in my head that had never been written before. And so that is how I always just kind of had, just for me personally, I think everybody's a little bit different, but everybody contributed. But for me personally, I could hear a whole song in my head, and I could hear all the different parts before they were written or played.
So that's what makes you. That's how you function.
That's how
as a
I do it. That's not how
songwriter.
all of us do it. But we all, like I said, we all contributed. But that's what would help me to contribute to the ideas, the arrangements.
That is so cool. I don't do that. I just regurgitate.
Yeah. No, not many people do that. And sometimes I can't get songs out of my head. Get out.
What do you think about San Francisco earthquake getting a second printing?
Oh. Well, you know, the first printing was beyond our wildest imagination, and I tend to speak in art. And the second printing is, you know, it's not just icing on the cake. It's more than the cherry on the top. It's incredible. It's beyond our wildest imagination that we would get a second pressing of the San Francisco earthquake LP.
Do you see yourselves recording a new album, perhaps redoing some of the older ones and contributing new material?
I don't know. We'll see what the future brings.
Bring it on.
Yep. I'm open to anything.
Presents.
I want to see it.
Yeah.
Me too.
Ditto. Figured since we were all putting our pieces into.
Are you in a band right now, other than Uther Pendragon?
Yes. Bruce and I play in a band called Bad Daddy. Five-member band. And we play old covers and we play new old classic rock that we wrote ourselves, and some Americana stuff that we've written ourselves. And we're actually in the studio now producing that album, and we're to the point where I think Bruce has some vocals left to do on it, and that project will be done.
And back to Uther Pendragon, would you like to start playing out again as Uther Pendragon? Playing gigs, maybe going down to Arizona where Craig lives and hitting some casinos?
Or Ashland.
Or
Right now, my body's saying no. I am so tired right now from getting prepared for this.
Yeah.
You know, and it's 67 years old. The joints are seized up with arthritis and things like that. And the hard part is carrying down and setting up and traveling and all that sort of stuff. But for special occasions, I'd like to do it once in a while. But I don't see myself ever going on tour or anything like that. And I know that Craig talks a lot about, you know, playing in these casinos, but my body's at the point where I don't know that I could really go on tour and leave my wife for an extended period, that sort of thing.
what about creating a new album?
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Because
It'd be
that's
a
just
blast.
studio time
Oh,
and
yeah.
no teardown involved.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's a definite yes.
Let's see. What was your personal favorite of all the Pendragon gigs that you did?
Oh, that's easy. That is easy. It was the gig that Craig, our manager, set up in Redwood City at a hall, big giant hall. He invited high school kids and producers and all kinds of people. And when we played that gig, the hall was packed beyond capacity. I'm sure it wasn't fire legal, you know, as far as the fire codes and all that. And there was an actual stage, so it was really, really professional. And the song that we started out with was Devil's Due. So we had all these kids out there, and Craig took and threw dry ice in buckets of water, and this fog came out, and we started playing the song Devil's Due, and the lights went out, and we're playing this song, and then we come to the chorus where Bruce goes, and then he came with eyes of flame, the devil to fetch the dead, and this big giant bridge in the song. Craig turned on these lights, and it looked like flames, and he had fans going, and I don't know how he did it, but he created these flames in back of us without actually being fire. And we had this big ending, and Bruce plays a lead on that I just love. And we had this big ending, and stop, and there was dead silence in the hall. You know, 1,000 people out there, and you could have heard a pin drop. And I'm thinking, and I was singing lead on this song, I'm thinking, oh man, I know I'm a crappy singer, but I think it wasn't that bad. And all of a sudden, they just broke out in cheers and applause, and it gave us all goosebumps. I mean, it was incredible. And we were Uther Pendragon at the time. That's when Mike had first, I think that was Mike's first gig as drummer with us. Yeah. And so it was when we became officially Uther Pendragon. That's my favorite gig.
That's quite the induction for Mike.
Yeah.
Let's see. Did you play keyboards the whole time, or just for Uther Pendragon?
Well, I played keyboards at my mother's house, like I said before.
Mm-hmm.
Just kidding. No, when I started playing keyboards, because I never really kept up with. I when I was going to San Jose State, I was a music minor, and I took a piano course. I was playing some piano then, but I never really knew how to play piano. I could just play chords and things like that and do some stuff. And when we moved to Menlo Park, somehow we ended up with a Hammond organ. And it took 4 people to move this thing around. And that's when we incorporated it in 2 songs, Meanie Genie, and it would just be a simple slide up to a high A and like that, and then back down and up to A. And then we used it in Troubles. Troubles, and of course it's on the album, and that's really the only 2 we ever used keyboards on.
Do you plan on using keyboards ever again?
Oh yeah, anytime we play Troubles, of course. But and in the Bad Daddy stuff, I do a lot of keyboard work on that, because now you can do so much with keyboards with digital technology, and you can do tons of stuff, a lot more than just organ.
I understand that you've sold songs on your own as well. Can you tell me about your songwriting and what songs you've sold?
Like I said, songs continue to pop in my head, and I can't get them out sometimes, and so sometimes you just have to write it down and write a song, so to speak. And when we moved, actually it happened when we broke up as Pendragon. I never gave up the music dream. I still had a burning passion to make it as a rock star, and if that didn't work, a songwriter. So I went to songwriting as my secondary plan, because I put...
It's got 3 seconds left.
Oh, God.
All right.
Okay. So I, let's see, where was I?
You went to songwriting as your second.
Songwriting is my secondary thing, because Darlene and I had children now, and I put my family first, music second. And I could do songwriting and still have the family number 1, as long as I didn't move to Nashville or something like that. So yeah, just to shorten it up for you, I had a song placed in sitcom on television, had a song that ended up on a Nickelodeon movie of the week, had a song that won the Great American Song Contest, the country category, song that took 2nd place in the Great American Song Contest, which is people from all over the world enter that, and then had a song that hippie from the 60s that took honorable mention in the Billboard songwriting, and that's a huge songwriting contest. So that was it really made me feel good to get that honor.
If Pendragon does come out with a new album, I think we should definitely hear some new material from you on there.
Oh,
sounds like it.
It's always coming out of me. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to Mark Lightcap, rhythm guitar, and occasional keyboardist for Uther Pendragon.
Thank you.